Hey everyone, welcome back to Laser Cut Hub. Today I'm going to be running through how I built a laser cut jet fighter phone holder. I'll give an overview of creating the design parameters for the project, the actual design, cutting, and final assembly for the holder. Let's jump into it. I started with the search for jet fighters on the internet and settled on designing the phone holder after the F-16. It's characterized by the curve down the nose of the plane to the wings and back to the exhaust. I could also add an extra layer of depth by including some of the aircraft ordnance on a second layer underneath the top jet layer of my phone holder. Using this as a guide, I decided to create an angled L-shaped holder with the fighter jet as the backrest and a bottom resting piece to be underneath the phone. I actually created a space shuttle holder that you can find below in the description where I took some of the final dimensions from. I decided to choose the width of the bottom ledge to be 80 millimeters to hold my phone, overall height of the design about 180 millimeters, and distance from the bottom of the part to the opening of about 21.5 millimeters. I also reused the resting piece from that space shuttle design so I could focus on creating the fighter jet backrest instead. So jumping into the first sketch that I created, I did the overall sketch of the jet itself first. So the way I did it was I used a series of splines and lines to create kind of the outer edge here of the jet and its ordnance on one side. And then taking that one side, I then mirrored it over a axis of symmetry to get the symmetrical jet that you see here on the page. And I've got kind of the general outlines of the three parameters I was looking at, the 80 millimeters for my slot here, which I will be including later on in the part, the 21.5 millimeters from the bottom of the part to the actual slot itself, and then the general overall height of about 180 millimeters. You might also notice a couple of differences between this sketch and the actual design of the F-16 plane, most notably on the bottom edge here. I wanted obviously this to rest on my desk, so I created the back portion of the tail wing to be flat, so it gives a good solid region for that holder to rest on my desk. I also increased some of the missiles here, their width later on in the design, because I thought they would just be too flimsy, which really isn't the scale of the plane, but again, I needed to have a solid structure here. And from here, I took this and broke this out into two different parts, one for the fighter jet and then one for the lower ordnance layer. So let's go ahead and open up the fighter jet first. So here you can see the fighter jet that I created. So the first thing I did was I removed out the ordnance layer, so you can see those kind of missiles here that were removed, and I kept the outer edge here of the jet itself, and then I also added in a buffer around the cut section here. So I lose kind of the tail wing of the jet, but that allows me to actually use it as a phone holder. And so later on, I go ahead and make an engraving line that you'll see in a minute here. So this is the overall jet itself, and I then extruded this out 3 millimeters for my material that I would be cutting. And then you'll notice that I've got then this sketch here, sketch 2, which is all of the engraving lines. So I've got a fill section here on the cockpit, and then another fill section down here that'll be for the exhaust, and then the rest are just engraving lines for my laser. And you'll notice here is where I was speaking about the angled portion of the tail wings here on the jet, and I need to add it in the solid region here for the cut of the bottom portion. So once I had my jet layer, I moved on to the ordnance layer, which for that I will pull up now. And here's the bottom portion of that. So you'll notice I saved a few of the features from the top layer. I've got like the nose of the plane and the bottom portion of the plane for the bottom of the design to rest on the desk, but I left out kind of the outer edges of the wings. I figured I didn't need those for this second layer. It was a little bit more complicated cut pattern, so it took a little bit more time and it was a little bit more material. So I cut off this layer here at the outer missile. And I also did the same thing where I just mirrored it over that central axis, and then I also added in the sketch for some engraving features. I did a little box on this, and then a little curved region here on the bomb, and then like sort of a crosshairs design that I noticed on some of the pictures that I looked at online of an F-16. So I had my couple of parts and I was ready to put that together into an assembly. So let's pull up that assembly. And here we go. So I just have the assembly that I put together of the 3 parts. So to put the 2 jet fighter parts together, I used kind of the curved edge up here on the nose to put those 2 parts together, and then slid in my 3rd part here in the bottom with the inner cut face of the first 2 parts, and then the cut face on this 3rd part here. And you'll notice I do have that backing portion right here up against the face of the back side of the ordnance layer on the fighter. And this was the overall then fighter that we got. So once the final design was completed, time to hit the like button and move on over to LightBurn. Okay, so to transfer the files over from SolidWorks into LightBurn, I needed to save each of the individual parts as a DXF file and then import those into LightBurn, as you can see here. There's more information on that process that can be found in a blog post that I put together in the description, so if you want to check that out, that's down below. So once all of these parts were in LightBurn, I needed to assign the proper layers to them and rearrange it and add some tabs. So you can see I've got my 3 different cut layers. I've got the dark layer 0, which is my outer cut region. That'll cut all the way through my 3mm plywood. And then I've got a fill region here, layer 2, which is red. And I've got a fill on the cockpit and the exhaust. And then the crosshairs here on the ordnance. And then finally, my engraving line is the layer 3, which is the green lines, and just detailing engraving lines for that. And then I said I also added in some tabs. So if you can see here, I added in a couple tabs for each of the parts to make sure that when I do the cut, the pieces stay connected to the material until I'm ready to pop it off later. And that's pretty much all I did in LightBurn, and I was ready to go and hit play to start it up with my laser. So let's check out the cutting. Okay, so here we are. We're going to speed up the cutting a little bit. So I do all my cutting on my X-Tool 40-watt diode laser, and again, this is 3mm plywood. So first I'm going to run it through my outer cut edge, and I do leave the tabs as I stated before so that I can pop it off the material later. Now this is backwards. I should be doing the engraving lines first, but for the purposes of capturing the actual video, I think it's more dramatic to see the engraving lines coming at the end to really have the final detailing of the part completed at the end of it. So once that's finished, it's going to go ahead and do my fill layers. So I'm doing the fill portions of the jet, and now the cockpit, and right after this it'll do the engraving, and our part will be all set and ready to assemble. And there we go. We've got our final parts ready to put together. Here's the final 3 parts after some light sanding on the visible portions to remove some of the sootier regions of the parts. And once we do the 2 snaps on, we got our final phone holder ready to go. And after a couple more shots here of the finished project, but thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more of these projects. Also, leave us a comment if there's anything else you'd like to see built. If you own a laser cutter yourself or you'd enjoy more content, there's a link to the blog post on lasercuthub.com in the description with more info and the free project files for download. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by.